It's a fish bottle TCG. This is the Enel Deck List that I've been running for OP09. As you know, Enel, it's a leader when you go down to 0 for the first time. Every turn on your opponent's turn, you can discard a card from your hand and heal 1 from the top of your life. Very standard. Let's go over the 2Ks first. So we play 3 Flampe. Very good card. Helps it when players like keep you at 2. You can like Flampe and then like Yamato, or like you can Flampe Raigo, so you don't like lose that card. It's very good. We've got 4 Beige. This card's infinite counter off life, and it's a 2K in hand. Just absolutely insane. Pretty standard. And we have the 1 Frankie. It's a body off life sometimes, it's a 2K, and more importantly, it has a trigger. And we got 4 of the 0 drop event here. Crazy in life. And you just cycle through life a lot just as you play it now, so it's just too good not to run. Also, you just play a lot of big bodies and bricks, so this helps fix the counter in your hand. For bodies that we play, we have 3 Shirahoshi blocker. Helps you a lot against Shanks, more like, and like a lot of just rogue decks in general. Decks that can't really KO things very well. It's kind of rough that in this meta there's like Dofi has Law, and then like P. Luffy has Uso Hachis to just rest this, and then they just get through it like that. But it's still just a really good card that some decks just can't like answer very well. Basically another life. It gives you something to play early. This card is insane. We got 4 Kuzans. I didn't say this earlier, but this is like a full starve list. This card is just insane. It makes your Gadatsu stronger, like if they play searchers or little small guys, and also it rips a card from their hand, so it really helps you starve really well. And you can just play it early. It's like an early game play. We are playing 2 Shirahoshi. It's crazy on life, cycle for 3. Also, like most decks nowadays, besides like Dofi obviously, have like just a ton of like big bodies that are relatively slow. Like they're only playing like 1 big card a turn. So because like the gameplay of this format is like a little bit slower than usual, playing this on like turn 3 there's like cycle is just like also not bad at all. And in worst case scenario, it's like a counter or like a discard off some of the cards you play, such as the 4 of Nami here. Pops a 5 cost. By trashing a trigger from your hand, you have 3 or less. You can draw a card. This card's just really good. Pops a lot of things you're scared of. 5 it costs is a really good number to hit. So, just overall a good card. We've got 4 Gadatsu. Very good for our starve gameplay here. Usually we can get them if we see like pretty good opener, and like we just see the cards. We can get them to like 6-7 life. This thing pops like those things are like just really good. Helps you control the board. We've got 2 Rocket Luffys. If the game is slow, you just play them and you just sit on them. It's also a good trigger off life into Dofi, and just pops a 4 or less. And it replaces itself as well if you play it from the hand. And lastly, for the stuff that this is actually not lastly though, the stuff that pops, but we have 4 Raigos. You just get rid of mainly want to use these on like the 9 drops, 10 drops that people play. A clean answer to them. Just get rid of bodies. We've got for our big bodies, pretty standard. 4 Katakuri. Gets rid of an 8 or less, and if you really need it, you can heal yourself as well. Usually you want to be using this on the opponent though. Just get rid of their big bodies, primarily like, I don't know, first thing that comes to my mind is like Gecko. Very good target. Now we got 4 Yamatos. It's a heal. Pops a thing. If you're starving your opponent, usually you can pop a 5 or a 6, 7 cost card. Lets you control the board, lets you stabilize. Pretty good. And finally, you gotta have the 10 drop ace. Heals you, has rush if you have 2 or less life. You can always choose not to heal if you're like already sitting at 2 and then just have the rush. Very good card overall. It's like the best card in the deck, honestly. And then finally, for our last 3 cards, we have the One of Amaru, specifically for the Blackbeard matchup, to rest their Burgess and swing into it. Get rid of it. But this card also has a trigger, so you can discard off Nami. And the trigger off life is pretty good as well, can come in clutch. And then we just have the 2 of the Reshishi, which is just searches you 2 triggers top 5 of life. A lot of your deck is triggers, so usually you could hit 2 cards. Mainly this is here to like search for the Amaru, search for the Raigo, give you an early play to do to get like card advantage. So usually you can hit 2, like almost guarantee to hit 1 every time. But when this whiffs, which is, it feels so bad when it whiffs, but it's a good card. At worst, it's a discard for Nami because it does have a trigger. So that's the list. We'll talk about like its hardest matchups. Hardest matchups is like anything purple, usually. The ones that are like prevalent in the meta right now is like purple Luffy is a really hard matchup because you can't really starve them. And red purple Luffy is also a pretty hard matchup because starving them is also kind of hard because they only have 3 lives, so your Gadatsus are weaker and like your Yamatos are weaker. And also they just play a ton of big bodies to begin with, like way more big bodies than you. So it's hard to contest that. For the purple Luffy and the RP Luffy matchups, I find it better when you go first and just you hard mulligan for the Nami. Because this is the only thing, like, they play a lot of 5s that is rough for you to clear. Like the Sangoro, especially for the P Luffy, and like Useless Kid, like blocker for RP Luffy and Bond Clays and stuff. Like you hit a lot of your deck early on, and you want to just like get off the pressure off of you early on into the game against these matchups. So you want to like counter out early, keep out a pretty healthy life, like get out of the easy 5k swings, get out of the 6k swings, you have 2ks, then play Nami on curve, pop a guy, like just try to keep him off and then try to stabilize with like Namis and Katakuris, get rid of like Luffy Taro, Rayleighs, the 7-drop kid, stuff like that. And then just try to like rip cards out of their hand by swinging at their life and try to kind of rush them down. But it's why the matchup is rough, because the deck is not really built to rush down super well. Into Shanks, this deck feels like pretty good. You just starve them and try to get rid of their bodies. Only Raigo, their 10 drops. If they're playing the Pop Shanks, it's kind of rough because I can test like any of your bodies or your big bodies. But basically, you just wanna just Raigo their big guys. Anything 8 or lower, You can get a curry, and if you're starving really well, if you start like, sometimes you'll be able to pop big shit with their the Yamatos, like Ben Beckman's, Yasop's, the Silver Israeli Blocker. You just get rid of bodies with that. And the Kuzan helps a lot, like if they play out their Blinding, Building Snake, Hongos, and Uto Searchers. Just help you get that big threshold. Your biggest threat as Shanks is like if they take second from you and they play like a Sanji, they can like de-starve. Then you gotta kind of change your game plan. Like you can maybe try to rush them down if they're being really aggro with the Sanji. Like if they play it on turn 1, take a life, then turn 2 they take another life. You might be able to like sneak a win through by out tempoing them or trying to tempo them out, because they usually are only playing one body a turn and you're also playing like one body a turn. But yeah, that's like the Shanks matchup. Dofi is like a free win. Just mulligan for Gadatsus, Namis, Yamatos. The Kuzan's really good in that one too. Rips cards out of their hand and to make sure like they can't get extra value off of like the Peronas and Sengokus that they drop down by bouncing them to hand with Law. Only thing you need to worry about in there is like, only what you lose is like if they see 2 Jinbei early and they hit a pretty nasty pudding on you. Like that's like the only way you lose. Like they kind of have to see the nuts for you to lose, and or like you just see like absolutely nothing. But the chances of you seeing absolutely nothing are like very low. So that matchup's free. BY Luffy matchup should be pretty free too, because you have the Kuzans now, so you can just put their little guys to the bottom of their life. Kind of curry their geckos, just full starve them, force them to try to awaken themselves. And then once you have like 3 big bodies or something, like you can like pressure them to try to rip cards out of their hand. Stuff like that. Like even if they're a 7k reader, like still pressure them at that point, because all your bodies are 8, 9, and 10. So it should be easy to rip some cards. And the Blackbeard matchup, All-Star, Kuzan. Ideally, you Kuzan or Dock you, so that they don't get the drawback on KO. So, and it puts their life up to 6. That's the MVP, and then obviously the Omaru for the Burgess. The only way you lose this matchup, you want to take second from them, ideally, and you want to look for these cards for sure. And the Dereshishi helps you find the Omaru. Ooh, and the Raigo is very important as well. Early on, you want to try to find Kuzans. Use the Kuzans on their left feet or their what is it, Dot Q. Then you just full starve. Biggest threat, they have 2 Burges. If they establish 2 Burges before they hit 10 Dawn, then and you can't remove one, very hard. Your only removal for Burges basically, if they don't turn him sideways, is the Amaru or Katakuri if they don't leader effect. And if you're starving, there's a chance that like they get low on cards, and like if you like double Kuz on them or something, that there'll be an opportunity for you to Katakuri their Burgess away. But if they get 2 Burgess on field and they get you down to 1 life, they play the 10 Blackbeard teach. They get your leader effect, swing 5, and then swing like double 9s or something, or however big he is at that point in time. You just rip so many cards out of your hand, or you just die, and they just leader effect. You can't heal. But if they have 1, it's doable. If they have 1, usually they go like, they play the 10 drop, they swing in, you counter out the 5k, swing from leader, then you could probably counter out the 9k, or like 8 or whatever. Gets a lot of cards out of your hand, but after that, usually you would have one big body established already, like a Yamato, Katakuri, or Ace. So you just like regular 10 drop, then attach 4 Dawn onto like something and swing into the Burgess. And they have like super low cards in hand, so usually like it gets even with like your leader, like he's like swing 9 at the Burgess. And if he's not like super big, if he's also not like a 9 or an 8 at this point in the game, they have like pretty low cards in hand. So you might just get him off that. But that's the biggest thing you need to be worried about are the Burgess, the double Burgess. Because without the double Burgess, they just play their 10 drop, and then they swing at you for 5, you counter out the 5. And then ideally you can just Rygo. So these are the 3 cards for the Black-Red matchup that you need to see. Absolutely. I guess I can just like outline the cards that you want to see for like every matchup. Every matchup probably wants to see the Kuzans. And obviously you want to see like a good enough of the big bodies. Like you want to see the Kuzans, you want to see the Yamatos, you want to see Katakuris, you want to see the Aces, you want to see like some amount of these in like every matchup you play. Like you're gonna probably want to look for these cards. Your mid-game plays are obviously the Kadatsu and the Nami for like tempo and stuff. But specifically, those were the cards for the Blackbird matchup. These are the cards for like every matchup, basically. Nami and Gadatsu, must-haves for the Dofi matchup. Any rogue deck, these are probably a must-have. And that's about it. Again, your worst matchup is like any purple deck. Pudding, or yellow, purple pudding, purple Luffy, red purple Luffy, peanut butter Luffy, purple black Luffy is like pretty. It's fine because they can't unstarve themselves, but they do ramp pretty fast the big bodies, and that leader effect to give extra cost is annoying as well. So that matchup is like a little bit iffy, but I still think it's like pretty fine, like 50-50. That's like the one purple deck I probably wouldn't be scared of that's like prevalent right now. Yeah. That's the list. Hope you enjoy.